Hi, this is Chris from RF Venue, here to give you a quick overview of the Clearwaves software for the RF Explorer Rack Pro. So this software comes bundled with the Rack Pro 19-inch rack-mounted spectrum analyzer product from RF Venue. It features 3 software licenses, so you can load it onto multiple computers, and it is currently PC only. Stay tuned for a Mac OS X native application that we hope to release very soon. So right off the bat here, we've loaded the software and started up our scan. And you can see over here in the top right, this is where we set the range over which we're going to scan. So here it's 500 to 600 megahertz. That can be changed around for broader or for more narrow scanning. Now down here in the bottom right, you can see the scan status bar where this shows each scan as it completes, and shows a XY display here, common for spectrum analyzers, that shows the relative signal strength by frequency across the range that you're scanning. So here we can see if we mouse over this this peak here, this is at 525. This is a wireless microphone, and then there's one of its Intermod products there. In the top right-hand corner of this view, you can see a marker view as you move the mouse from left to right of what frequency you're hovering over. So that could be handy. So there's a couple different views here in the bottom section: a topographic view, also a delta view, which will point out changes in each scan. So if there's third-party interference sources that creep up, you would see those spike here from one scan to the next. And then there's a very quick way to do Intermod calculation to generate sets of open frequencies that are free of Intermod distortion from the front panel, although we recommend going into the Intermodulation Analysis tab up here that we'll look at in just a second. So just from the front window here, this is a very handy way of visualizing what RF is active in the facility and making some decisions about where you might want to locate your wireless equipment given what's around you. So we're going to go ahead and stop this scan, and now we're going to go over to the Intermodulation Analysis tab. Now, this is the area where you make you change a couple parameters to set up a calculation that will generate sets of frequencies that are both not occupied and also free of Intermod. So what we can do is we can either refresh the scan, do a new scan here, or we can take the last trace. So we'll go ahead and do that. So there's our trace that we just took on the Spectrum Analysis tab. And from this slider right here, this white space threshold, we can set a level and tell the software to consider everything above this threshold level as an occupied frequency that should be factored into our intermodulation calculation. So over here, we can add a little bit more complexity, or what we refer to as strictness, to the calculation. So the more parameters are added here, the less frequencies will be returned. And so if you're in a very occupied RF environment where there's not a lot of free channels, you might reduce this, or if you have more RF available or in an area that's less occupied, you might make it more strict to give you the most solid frequencies that the algorithm will return. So up here in the intermodulation dropdown, there's a number of different parameters that we can get into that will further refine the calculation as well as our results. So for example, if we want to set up our channel bands for our receivers or wireless microphone receivers, we would want to input those fields here. So if we have one receiver that's 525 to 575, and say we have another one that is 500 to 520. This will tell the software to just return frequencies within those ranges so that we can actually use them for the equipment that we have on hand. So that's an important feature there. Also, you can lock out DTV channels if you operate regionally and there's consistent sources of interference or crowding from local over-the-air TV. You can just take those out here, and that will factor those into the calculation, as well as reserved frequencies or excluded frequencies. So if you have other third parties that are going to be using wireless and they have a list of frequencies, you want the software to factor those in even if they're not active at the time of your scan. So we'll go ahead and start this scan, and the software will go through and it will calculate, based on those ranges, a set of frequencies. In this case, over here on the right-hand side, 21 frequencies across those two channel bands that we set up that are available to us based on all of the other occupied RF and other intermod factors in this particular facility. So with this information, we can go ahead and create a report. And this test report will give us a PDF file that shows the last scan that we took, as well as a list of the channels that are available to us. So if you're doing a sound system installation where you're going to be leaving behind instructions, this is a handy way to provide a list of frequencies for the facility to use should they want to add mics in the future or bring in other third-party equipment. They can factor this information into some of those decisions. Now, you can also export the trace data into a couple different formats. Professional Wireless's IAS software, also another format that's compatible with Shure's Wireless Workbench. So if you're using Wireless Workbench to actually set up the frequencies you're using in the receivers into a networked Shure wireless rack, this can be really handy to take your trace here and then move that into Wireless Workbench to actually deploy the frequencies across those systems. And lastly, there is another mode here called monitored frequencies, where once we have our frequencies set up, we can go into this view, go to monitored frequencies under the toolbar, and we can actually assign names and frequencies to the equipment that we're using. And then we can set a threshold here at the bottom with this slider for a alert, where if the signal should drop below this alert level, the graphic here will change colors from red to green. So if these were active now, we'd have a whole range of high signal strength sources, and then once you get a dropout, it would go below that alert threshold and change colors, so you could visually see when you're getting a dropout. This is handy both as a show mode while a event is going on, but also when you're setting up, maybe playing around with antenna locations to try to improve coverage and make sure that you don't have any dead spots in the venue before you begin. So that, in a nutshell, is the Clearwaves software for the RF Explorer Rack Pro. For further information, please feel free to contact us through www.rfvenue.com. Thank you.